Hello everyone, this is Tim. In this video I want to talk about something that popped into my head while I was watching The Tudors. And that's a series that I think was on Showtime. I watched it on Netflix. In The Tudors it talks a lot about King Henry VIII and his wives and the religious schisms that were happening during his reign. And it made me think about RPGs. I think in modern day life, we just assume and we're used to the idea of religious freedom, where we can have whatever ideas we want, we can talk about whatever ideas we want, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, that sorts of things. And we're just not used to the idea that there was a time where you having different beliefs than someone else could have you could be labeled as a heretic and you could be burned at the stake because of it. Even if you would agree with like 95% of what they believe, that slight difference could end up being your death. And some people would look at those slight differences as huge differences, even though, like I said, most of the time they agreed with a lot of what was being said. So it made me think. I think that modern mindset about religious freedom has worked its way into our fantasy settings, where there are different gods, there's different religions, different way of doing things. Even within the party, you could have multiple people with different gods and different beliefs, and we're just used to that's just what we're used to. And it made me think, what would it look like if we tried to run a game that was more like a place that had less religious freedom. So let's say your kingdom has an official religion. They believe in a certain deity, they believe in a certain set of morals and traditions, and what would it be like if you didn't believe in those morals and traditions or that God itself? Maybe you believed in a different God. In that sort of setting, I would suggest that the king would punish those who were spreading dissension and being traitors because they did not believe the same way that the king did. That whatever he said was what everyone should believe, what everyone should incorporate into their daily lives. So if you were playing someone that wasn't a part of the overall belief system of that kingdom, you would have to keep it secret. You would have to keep it under wraps, and any meetings or religious ceremonies that you would have to be held in secret, or basically in your basement, in hidden places or random places that would only be talked about maybe the day before. It would have to be very secret and hush hush. Maybe like you would have ceremonies in like the catacombs, places where no one usually goes to, just because you're afraid someone's going to find out and you're going to die in a horrible flaming death, tied to a stake or something like that. Or maybe the king has an even more terrible way of killing, heretics and people that don't agree with his, viewpoints, his worldview of how everything works. So yeah, it really was kind of strange for me, and it made me think about my own personal life. I would never want anyone to be burned at the stake. The idea of burning to death really freaks me out, especially if it's like a slow, like you don't catch fire right away kind of death. I don't know, that's the stuff of nightmares for me. And I just can't get to that understanding of wanting to burn someone that didn't agree with me. Again, this is that modern mindset where we're a lot more tolerant, and I don't know, like for me, if I was to have this old mindset, I can't even imagine fitting that in my life. I talk to and I'm friends with so many people that have wildly different viewpoints than my own. I wouldn't want to wish that upon them. They're all good people. I don't know. It was very strange and very sort of surreal to even think about that. So there's this kingdom. They believe in a god, and the king puts laws out there saying, if there's any dissension in the ranks, if new religions crop up, they must be stamped out. All the followers must be murdered. Wives, children. And it can get downright brutal. So if you wanted to mix things up in a campaign, and just sort of bring in more of that like European feel for this sort of thing, I think it could fit well in an RPG setting. As long as the players know ahead of time what the punishments are, what the dangers are, I think that can add to some of the dread, some of the mood in your campaign. Especially, like I said, if they all believe a different faith. In this sort of setting, I would suggest that if there is like one religion that's the only religion in a kingdom, that perhaps all of the player characters hold to some different viewpoint, slightly different, schism or denomination or religion or a different god, whatever your situation calls for. There was a setting that talked a little bit about this. It was the Echoes of Heaven setting. And it's for like harp and D20, I think hero as well. He had it statted out for different systems, where there was one deity, but all of the different races sort of interpreted that deity in different ways, and they had religious wars about it, holy war, where they're trying to defeat each other so that their point of view was the only point of view that was remaining, the one that was left. And I think there were some races in that setting, and some, excuse the cat, that were more conciliatory, more tolerant of the different viewpoints, so that they didn't want to destroy everyone else, but they would still hold that their way was the correct way. So I'd be interested to hear how you would incorporate the idea of heretics, information that was being suppressed by a king, all the strict ways in which they would punish the peasants and so forth that rebelled. Burning, I'm guessing, just horrible public deaths in front of different people. Things like that. So it's just the idea that our modern sensibilities working their way into the RPGs versus how like the Middle Ages, Dark Ages actually were, and if your fantasy setting actually takes those themes and tries to incorporate them or not. I know the Pendragon RPG talks a lot about the new religion, Christianity versus the older faiths, the older belief systems, and which one does your character believe, which one do they follow. But it was just an idea that popped in my head that the idea that your character may wish to burn other people because they have a different belief system than you seems to have been more prevalent a long time ago than it is today. I don't know. I guess the sort of idea of if they don't believe what you believe, they're some sort of infidel, some sort of unclean thing. They are not worthy of life because they have this different belief. And again, that's an alien concept to me. I don't understand it. Like I wouldn't do that in my own personal life. But again, we can use it whatever we want in an RPG as long as it makes the story better, makes the setting more interesting. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on the lack of religious freedom, the idea of a majority way of looking at a certain god or religion, and versus slightly different versions, which would be called heretics, religious schisms in RPGs, that sort of thing. All right, I'll be looking forward to seeing your comments and see what you have to say. All right, guys, thanks a lot.